Hello, it's Craig and Richard here. So welcome to the first feedback session for this mindfulness course. We're in the not quite so sunny grounds of Monash University and just suffering from hypothermia at the moment. So it's been a reasonably cool spring morning. But we're going to be giving a feedback session each week with the key issues, questions, the hot topics that have arisen. So thank you for already engaging very much in all of that feedback and discussion.
We've got learners from all around the world once again.
Fantastic to have so many people from different parts of the planet all connecting in this kind of way, and a lot of reasons for joining as well. You know, just for general well-being, greater peace, self-awareness, a bit of relationships, or dealing with stress and pressures at work, anxiety, chronic pain, managing, challenging life situations. So lots of fantastic reasons, and mindfulness is a very generic skill with a lot of applications. So the more you throw yourself into it, I'm sure the more that you'll discover. And welcome to a lot of repeat learners who are doing the program for some of them for the fourth time. And so it's tremendous to be welcoming you back to their course as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'd like to thank our moderators, Jen and Sherelle. And if you haven't followed them already on the discussion forum, please do that just to make sure that you see all of their comments every week. They'll be sort of facilitating the conversations that you guys are having.
Yeah. And two, we hope as well in the discussion each week to build a very supportive environment, ask questions and so on. But we hope that everybody will engage in that discussion in a very respectful and collegial kind of way.
And that's been happening already, Craig. A lot of support already, a lot of encouragement and support. So please keep doing that. It's really great to see.
Fantastic. And of course, this course is not set up to be therapeutic. And so some people might have had a background of depression or anxiety. And so, and we hope that you get a lot out of this course and it's a good adjunct to whatever else you're doing. But of course, we don't intend this course to be a replacement for any other sort of mental health work that anybody might be doing.
No. And please take it slow as well. That there's a temptation sometimes for learners to rush ahead and do all 6 weeks in the first week. And while you have access to all of the materials, the course is certainly designed that each of the activities and experiments and different things are explored in your own lives, and then there's that opportunity for discussion on the forum. So please sort of take it slow and
assimilate it and really engage with the material, and then move on. And you'll probably find you get a lot more out of that, the practice rather than just the theory.
Yeah, you'll see that we have provided links to a lot of the research, and in particular to some journal articles. And the purpose of doing that is just to let you guys know that there's science behind what we're talking about, and for those of you who are interested, you can read further. Some of the journals are free, some of them require payment, and we certainly don't expect that anyone's going to be buying the journal articles, but it's just to let you know what's there.
Yeah, so if we're, for example, making a statement, often learners will say, is there evidence for that? And so we've often tried to respond to that and just giving you examples of good articles, but please don't, and we certainly don't get any kickbacks if anybody buys an article. That's not the intention. We just want you to know that there's more there if you'd like to look at it. You can search PubMed for yourself as well and type in the keywords that if you're interested, and you can often find your own papers if you want to. All right, so there are a lot of hot topics coming up this week, and one of them is about reminding ourselves to be mindful. So post-it notes or a screensaver, or somebody even mentioned getting a tattoo. Mind you, if you do have, be mindful tattooed on your forehead, make sure it's in reverse so that you can actually read it when it's in the mirror.
Yeah.
But so lots of, and that's part of the challenge, is just to remember to practice mindfulness.
Absolutely, especially in the beginning.
Yes. Yeah. Now, a lot of people are noticing about being unmindful.
It's one of the first steps in learning about mindfulness sometimes, is just to start noticing how unmindful we can be, how much of the time we're distracted. And we've mentioned research that shows that about half our life we're distracted. And
half?
I don't know about you, Craig, but I think that's a pretty conservative estimate, actually.
That must be Zen masters if they're in the present moment for half the time.
Yep. Yeah. So a lot of learners have started to notice that that's happening, starting to notice some of the effects that has, increased levels of stress, mistakes, not connecting with people when we're talking. So it's a very useful thing to first notice that.
Yeah, and some people interpret that in a very negative way. Oh, look at all this distraction and so on. But that's actually a very positive thing that it's being noticed. So we hope that people look at that as actually a sign of progress.
Some of the learners even noticed while they were watching the videos that they weren't paying attention and had to watch it up to 4 times to actually hear what was being said. So that's an interesting case in point.
Yeah, so just that awareness. And also noticing about attitudes, because mindfulness is not just about attention, it's about the attitude with which we pay attention. And a lot of becoming aware of the tendency for self-criticism or reactivity, and starting already to cultivate a little bit of that self-compassion. A little bit of that acceptance and not judging, which is excellent because it's not just about trying to focus.
Yes.
Now, there was things noticed as well about spontaneous or mindfulness, and where does that fit in with the discipline of mindfulness?
Absolutely. And it's a good thing to notice, actually, that we're already practicing mindfulness. We all have mindful moments throughout the day, maybe doing our hobbies or eating our favourite food or just that cup of tea in the morning or that coffee in my case, you know. So we all have these mindful moments throughout the day, and so realising that we're already experiencing mindfulness is actually a really good starting point.
Yeah, just noticing a flower or just looking at the insects as they're going about their business in the garden and so on, and all of these things are natural or spontaneous things. In fact, sometimes, like just spontaneously being in the moment, and then the mind starts up with, oh, am I in the present moment? Oh, am I being mindful?
Well, you were for a moment.
And so getting caught in an internal dialogue about being mindful is actually not being mindful. So these natural moments, we don't have to remember to be mindful when we are, but when we notice that we're distracted, that's the moment when the discipline kicks in to actually notice and to gently re-engage our attention.
Yeah. And of course, we're naturally like that even more when we're kids, Craig, and that's something that some of our learners have raised.
Yes, you don't have to teach a child to be in the present moment, a young child, because it's the only moment there is. But what happens not so much, unlearn. What we do is we learn habits of distraction and inattention. Adults will very often model inattention and distraction, multitask when they're with their children. So children pick up a lot of very unhelpful habits early on. And so that natural mindfulness sort of starts to wane. The ability is still there, but learning mindfulness as an adult is not learning a new skill. It's redeveloping a capacity that goes rusty very quickly if it's not being used.
Even you could say rediscovering it. I think we just lose touch with this innate ability to be in the present moment.
Yes, yeah, we get into other habits, and so it's like that innate ability becomes covered.
Yeah. And so some learners have also asked about, is liking what we're doing the basis of mindfulness, which I think is a really interesting question. And I don't know about you, but I always find it sort of circular. I think if we like something, if we enjoy doing it, we naturally engage with it more fully.
Yeah.
And then through engaging with it more fully, we get more out of it, we're more present with it, and so we start to enjoy it more. And so that can, of course, be a circular thing.
And very often, my stress management's my sport, it's my hobby. But it's not so much the physical activity as the cultivation of the state of mind we're in when we're doing that activity that leaves us feeling refreshed and relaxed and invigorated and so on.
Yeah, quite often in the courses here at Monash, Craig, I notice that when students start to cultivate curiosity and interest, just maybe becoming interested in their breath or in each moment, suddenly they're sitting in a class that previously was kind of boring. And they just notice something that's interesting, and so they re-engage, and then rather than getting caught up in thoughts of how boring the class is, they find things that they enjoy and actually start to do better in the class and get a lot more out of it.
Yes. Remember a little quote, there are no uninteresting things, only uninterested people. And that kind of disengagement, we don't see whatever is there to be seen. We often don't engage with the people that are there to be engaged with. It was an interesting study in the journal Mindfulness, and they were looking at college students who were trained to wash the dishes mindfully. Normally, I want to do something else, so we should have to do. But they washed the dishes mindfully, and compared to students who washed it in the usual way, which is wishing they're doing something else.
That's right. Yeah.
And the students who watched them mindfully enjoyed it more, had more positive mood, less negative mood, and the time just flowed a whole lot more easily. So even mundane activities done in a mindful way can be an opportunity for mental rest and calm, or we can just have it as another opportunity to fill the mind with more rumination and distraction.
Mm. And if something seems boring, perhaps we could start to notice what our attention's caught up in that's making it boring.
Right.
Are we focused on the task itself, or are we caught up in some belief that this is a boring task, or waiting for it to be over, thinking about the next thing?
Yeah. I think, too, a lot of kids these days are so used to constant stimulation all the time And anytime that's not happening, there's this kind of idea, I'm bored. And it's almost like a form of mantra meditation, the mantra being I'm bored. It's a very powerful form of meditation because all of a sudden you find the whole universe a boring place, which is not a natural state for a child to be in.
I think it's not just kids either these days.
Now, a little bit about the comma as well. C-O-M-M-A.
Not the coma meditation.
No, C-O-M-A. No, this is the comma. And and this just like mini meditations, a little space between the completion of one thing and the commencement of another. I've used that metaphor for a long time, full stops for a longer meditation and commas. Because if you're reading a book that didn't have any punctuation in it, it just becomes an absolute blur and doesn't make any sense. And our life is like that if we don't punctuate it with conscious moments of stopping and being present and aware. And so the full stops and commas are very much around that.
Yeah. Lots of learners have noticed themselves getting distracted by things, aches and pains, for instance, and this question comes up about, do we let go of tension, do we accept it? And it's a very interesting relationship there, I think.
Yes.
And really the answer, I think, is to just notice what's actually happening, to notice any reactions that we're having to that, to let go of them. Anything that's happening in the mind, any judgments or reactions, if we start to let go of that and get in touch with what's actually going on in the body, quite often that takes a lot of the stress and discomfort out of it.
Yes, that's right. I mean, letting go is, I suppose, the opposite of getting caught up in or preoccupied by. You know, the sort of noticing but standing back rather than feeling totally consumed by something. And so that can be something cultivated with thoughts or feelings or physical sensations because they all come and they all go. So guided and unguided practice has come up a bit. And the guided practice is useful, makes it perhaps more pleasant, perhaps easier, a little bit like training wheels on the back of a bike, you know, when learning to ride a bicycle.
Good in the beginning.
Yeah, but and when you take the training wheels off and practice by yourself, the attention goes off more and we get more judgmental. But actually the practice we do by ourselves, like taking the training wheels off, is the more useful practice. Because if you reframe it, what's easier and more pleasant, well, training wheels on, but what's going to train the balance better, training wheels off. So even though it's more challenging, it's actually more useful.
Perhaps in the beginning, leave the training wheels on for the first week or two, and then we'll start maybe encouraging the learners to take them off and explore unguided meditation practices.
That's right, but the aim is to be independent, not to have a prop from some other place, for example.
Yeah. A lot of learners as well, once they start meditating on the breath, start to notice just by bringing their attention to the breath, it inherently changes it, and quite often people start to become a little self-aware or even anxious about their breathing.
Yes.
And one learner or a few learners actually mentioned being asthmatic and how just letting their breath happen naturally was very difficult for them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just to observe without interfering, without trying to control, just to notice. And so just even noticing initially that kind of attempt to control the effect of it, being curious about that. And over time, we may well find that just subsides by itself.
So we just move in the direction of allowing the breath to happen naturally, and at the same time notice that by paying attention to it, it can influence it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, there's been some things, we've chatted a little bit about letting go, but and also the noticing rather than notice the breath. We use a lot of things like just noticing the breath and so on. It helps to bring, perhaps the language helps to bring the person into the moment and flowing with the process rather than being directive, like notice the breath as if we're sort of imposing the process on a person. So
you will notice the breath.
That's right. Notice it now. Let go of the thoughts, or just so the subtleties in language do communicate. Hopefully, that sort of non-reactive, gentle approach.
Yes.
Yeah.
And something that's come up for the learners is that some people seem to be kind of getting it and others not getting it, and some people start to worry that maybe they're not understanding what's happening. And really this is an exploration. It's not about getting anything or understanding or having any kind of profound experience. This is really just a process of learning to recognise what's actually happening for us moment by moment. There's no right or wrong. There's no way to do it correctly or incorrectly.
Yeah, there's very often a very subtle expectation or hope. When I sit down, I'm going to have some kind of experience. And we're not even aware of that, but we think, if I let go more, then I'll have that experience. And so the paradox is not particularly having to have or expect any experience as right or wrong, but just to notice the experience we're having with that attitude of openness. But if we do, even on an unconscious level, sit down with an assumption, a certain experience is right, we experience I'm having is wrong, then we set up a whole lot of opportunity for judge and criticize what's actually happening, and then we're just practicing judging and criticizing. Yeah. And some have found too that sitting down to practice is just sort of allowed emotions, sometimes a bit beneath the surface, to just flow, and in a mindful way. Yeah, just if that arises, then just noticing that and just softening the attitude to that as well. Topics that we'll come back to as well in coming weeks related to multitasking. We won't say much about it now, but starting to notice the effect of multitasking. Ambient backgrounds, music, is that multitasking? Not if it's just in the background, but if we're listening to the music while we're trying to do something else, then the attention's on the music, not on the activity.
And we'll definitely be exploring that in the coming weeks.
That's right. So we don't want to say too much perhaps about that now. And evidence, questions have already come up. We do provide some papers and so on. There's a massive, I think there was about 900 new papers last year in psych and medical health-related journals. That's just last year, so it's literally going up exponentially. And we're not going to pretend to try and give all of that, but we will give a few papers here and there. But this is not really an academic course in the sense, but we don't want it to be just so light that it's just seen as being fluffy. So we'll try and provide that for those who are a little bit interested to look further. But yes, there's a massive amount of evidence, and please keep those questions going if you're interested to ask questions about that. But anyway, that's perhaps enough for today, Richard. So thank you all. It's been great to be with you for this first feedback session, and we'll look forward to hearing more about the discussion, and we'll be with you again next week.